I have pointed out frequently in this space that paid climate scientists, corporate media outlets, and politicians are slow to admit that Earth is amid abrupt, irreversible climate change. The Designed to Fail Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, created during the Ronald Reagan administration, admitted Earth is amid the most abrupt event in planetary history with its global warming of 1.5 degrees, published on October 8, 2018. The IPCC concluded that this ongoing event is irreversible in its IPCC Special Report on the Ocean and Cryosphere on September 24, 2019. I have referenced these reports repeatedly in this space. I have also pointed out several times in this space that Popular Mechanics has published several good articles about anthropogenic climate change. The pattern continues with an article published on March 9, 2025. The article is titled, "Oops, Scientists May Have Miscalculated Our Global Warming Timeline." The subhead, quote, "Clues have emerged that reveal a much hotter history than we thought," end quote. It's unclear who the "we" is. As I just pointed out, those of us keeping track of climate change know that even the Designed to Fail IPCC concluded we were amid abrupt, irreversible climate change, with 2 reports released more than 5 years ago. Global warming of 1.5 degrees was published more than 6 years ago. The IPCC Special Report on the Ocean and Cryosphere will pass the 6-year mark later this month. The rate of planetary warming has not slowed since these reports were published, as I have pointed out a few times in this space. I will now present some of the details published in the Popular Mechanics article titled, "Whoops, Scientists May Have Miscalculated Our Global Warming Timeline." The subhead reads, quote, "Clues have emerged that reveal a much hotter history than we thought," end quote. Again, it's unclear who the "we" is. I suspect it's most people, because most people believe what they read and hear from corporate media outlets. The article opens with 3 bullet points. 1, quote, "The Paris Climate Accords in 2015 set an ambitious and necessary goal of keeping global temperatures at 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temps. But a study says we might have blown past that threshold several years ago," end quote. 2, quote, "Scientists at the University Western Australia Oceans Institute studied long-lived Caribbean sclerosponges and created an ocean temperature timeline dating back to the 1700s," end quote. 3, quote, "While the study claims that we surpassed 1.5 degrees Celsius in 2020, other scientists question if data from just one part of the world is enough to capture the immense thermal complexity of our oceans," end quote. As I have pointed out a few dozen times in this space, governments of the world concluded we passed the 2C Rubicon in October 2023. Even Popular Mechanics can't get that part right. Furthermore, 2C didn't matter, as indicated by the IPCC's predecessor, the Advisory Group on Greenhouse Gases. This predecessor of the IPCC concluded that 1C was the Rubicon we could not cross. Climate science speaker and writer David Spratt has repeatedly said and written that self-reinforcing feedback loops were triggered at 0.5 C above the 1750 baseline. All that aside, let's take a look at what Popular Mechanics is revealing in this article. The 3 paragraphs after the bullet points are disappointing. Quote, "Whatever your stance is on climate change, it's real. Let's move on. It's impossible to have missed the near ubiquitous call to action to keep temperatures from exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels. Over the past few years, the somewhat bureaucratic phrase has become a rallying cry for the climate conscious. This ambitious target first surfaced following the Paris Climate Agreement and describes a sort of climate threshold. If we pass a long-term average increase in temperature of 1.5 degrees Celsius and hold at those levels for several years, we're going to do some serious damage to ourselves and our environment. Well, a paper from the University Western Australia Oceans Institute has some bad news. The world might have blown past that threshold 4 years ago. Published in the journal Nature Climate Change, the paper reaches this conclusion via an unlikely route, analyzing 6 sclerosponges, a kind of sea sponge that clings to underwater caves in the ocean. These sponges are commonly studied by climate scientists and are referred to as natural archives because they grow so slowly. like a fraction of a millimeter a year slow. This essentially allows them to lock away climate data in their limestone skeletons, not unlike tree rings or ice cores." End quote. The article in Popular Mechanics includes a link to a story published by the Associated Press. Published February 5th, 2024, that story is titled, "Has the planet warmed more than we thought? Ocean sponges might be telling us something." It includes a link to a peer-reviewed paper in the renowned Nature series of peer-reviewed journals. Specifically, it refers to a peer-reviewed open-access paper in Nature Climate Change, titled 300 Years of Sclerosponge Thermometry Shows Global Warming Has Exceeded 1.5 degrees C. The peer-reviewed paper was written by 4 scholars and published February 5th, 2024. The bottom line comes from the last 2 sentences in the abstract. Quote, "Hotter land temperatures, together with the earlier onset of industrial-era warming, indicate that global warming was already 1.7 plus or minus 0.1 degrees C above pre-industrial levels by 2020. Our result is 0.5 degrees C higher than IPCC estimates, with 2 degrees C global warming projected by the late 2020s, nearly 2 decades earlier than expected." End quote. Yet again, paid climate scientists and corporate media outlets are reporting information long behind us. Quote, "Global warming was already 1.7 plus or minus 0.1 degrees C above pre-industrial levels by 2020. Our result is 0.5 degrees C higher than IPCC estimates, with 2 degrees C global warming projected by the late 2020s, nearly 2 decades earlier than expected." End quote. I do not doubt that the peer-reviewed article has produced information, quote, "nearly 2 decades earlier than expected," end quote. It has also produced seriously outdated information. Clinging to the notion that 1.5C and 2C lie in our future is absurd and not surprising. Even though climate scientists are admitting they've made serious errors about the climate change timeline, they still can't quite admit how dire the situation is. It's very dire. It includes the likelihood that our species will go extinct soon, taking all life on Earth with us.